Good evening and welcome to the first roundtable discussion on C&D recycling. And to take this conversation forward, we have with us Eunan, Head of Business Development for Northern Europe at CDE. He brings a wealth of industry knowledge spanning almost 15 years, having worked on a broad portfolio of CDE's most complex wet processing projects within the construction and demolition industry to deliver commercial value from waste materials. Over to Eunan.
Thank you, Soliha. And very welcome to the International Recycling Week C&D Day on this roundtable discussion on the current trends, challenges in advancing the circular economy in the construction sector. We're joined by an excellent panel, some of who I have been on panels with before, some of whom are new to me, but we're within the same company, and I've shared the space with colleagues of theirs before. So I hope you enjoy the next 45 minutes or so. Can I also invite anyone who has questions to use the question function on the platform? Send them through to us, and we will try to get our the answer in the allotted time during the conversation. I'll see them popping up, so I'll forward them then to the panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open or let the panelists introduce themselves, and we'll see how modest they all are. So there'll be I guess they will all try to outdo each other. We'll start off as they come across on my screen. Nisrine, if you take the floor first, please, and don't be modest. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Nisrine Hougeiri. I'm the Director of Environmental and Sustainability Services at Laceco. Laceco is an architectural, engineering, and environmental consultancy firm. We have offices across the whole region. We've been working in the solid waste management sector as of 1998. Personally, I've been working in that sector since 2001, the date I graduated from university. And besides my role in Laceco, I'm also the Vice President of ISWA International Lebanon chapter. And I'm very happy to be with you here today, and I'm looking forward to the interesting discussion we're going to have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ellen, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, of course. Hello, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this first. My name is Ellen Petz. I'm the Managing Director and founder of an organization called Greenstream Flooring. And funny enough, it specializes in the commercial waste that is flooring. But we also are very involved with all interior commercial spaces in terms of the reuse and recycling of the whole interior. So my specialism is in interiors, but my longer term post I've been doing that for 12 years, but pre that I spent the previous 10 years in waste management and C&D construction issues and around reuse and recycling also. So I've been around a lot, and interiors are really kind of where we fit in terms of that expertise.
Thanks, Ellen. And yes, of course, we'll use the classification of demolition, or the selective demolition piece, to come back to what you do currently, and it fits in quite well, I think, with the conversation. If we can get Mohammed to introduce himself next, please.
Good afternoon. Hope everyone doing well and safe. I'm Mohammad Jaradat, Director of Tribal Key Waste Recovery at PR Company. I have over 12 years experience in solid waste management and the practical solution, along with sustainable strategy development. I have worked in both local and international projects in Middle East region. I'm certified as a chartered waste manager from IRW and ISWA. I hold master's degree in business strategy and leadership and change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Banerjee, if you can lastly introduce yourself, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Eunan. I'm Umar Banerjee, representing the Abu Dhabi Waste Management Center, the government authority for waste management in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, the capital of UAE. I am the technical advisor to the Director General of Abu Dhabi Waste Management Center, and policy and legislations specialist at the center. I have about 35 years experience in environment and waste management. primarily in regulatory authorities and with multinational consulting firms and major infrastructure projects being part of World Bank assignments. I have been involved in drafting the environmental permitting and clearance policy for the Government of India, as well as have contributed in regulatory reviews for Singapore, for Malaysia, for US, Netherlands, and Brazil. So I am also Chartered Waste Manager from the UK Chartered Institute of Waste Management. I'm looking forward to a very, very fruitful discussion this afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. Banerjee. And it's exactly that experience that I think that that the listeners want to hear. They want to hear. I guess first of all, they want to hear that the challenges that we face in this industry, in this market, in this area, are shared throughout the world, because then it's not just our problem here. It doesn't matter where you sit, as long as you know there's other people sharing the same problem. And then we identify how we overcome that in the short term. So we've overcome that first barrier, but how do we keep knocking down the barriers for the future? And over the last 15, 20 years, the focus has shifted from landfill to the recycling concept. And we understand that that has been driven by multiple needs, but primarily from the landfill space disappearing, the landfill locations getting further, the new landfill locations being further and further away from the place they're needed. So there's costs associated with travel. The urbanization expanding so that it's encroaching on the older landfill spaces creates another problem. These all seem to be logical issues or reasons to try to change the mindset, because it's hitting something in the pocket, and we all know that that's the place to get to center the most focus. And I guess to understand the trends, we go back a little bit, and I'll invite Mohammed from BIA. Those trends that we have seen in the past to change the mindset from a landfill mindset to a recycling mindset, have they been primarily up until now, but have they been primarily because there was a huge cost implication on just landfilling?
Hi everyone. First of all, most of the people since almost 10 years, since 10 years, they start to think how to use or to reduce the record of the landfill. They're looking for something, we call it usually zero waste to landfill. So people start to think from this point. Now, in my point of view, based on my experience, there is usually a solution for something called mineral C&D. The first challenge in the C&D, I believe, will be in mixed C&D. This something is coming with the high contamination level, is required a huge cost to process it, with an effect also to cost of the end product, and as well the quality. Add to that, people start to looking, or the contractor as well, they start to ask about the recycled aggregate. When they saw the cost of this material is exceed the cost of the virgin material, they start to become, let us talk, step back. We start to understand where's the solution, how we can process of this material. And actually at BIA, we start to treat the mixed C&D material since 2016. And alhamdulillah, we have a very good experience and on that. And we solved also the issue of the mixed C&D. BIA since 2016, we reached to zero to landfill from the C&D material. We divert all material to process it through our C&D facility. And we reduce the cost by selected the proper technology as well. So this, from my point of view, what the importance of using or diverting the C&D, the impact of carbons of C&D in the landfill is affected also the environment as well. Required of the lands, huge land in the landfill because it's high density or high value material. So right now we reduce the required of the landfill at BIA. Slowly, C&D plus other materials we start to dive into other facilities to reduce also the work of the landfill. Thank you.
Yeah. And I guess that it's part of the same answer, but further down the timeline, Mohammed, and Dr. Udayan, we see that there's always a reason for people to change the mindset. And as I say, I guess what I'm trying to find out from your experience as well, and with Tadweer, what was the trigger for people to think recycling? I don't believe it was the innovation or the end use or the environmental impact that we see today, the environmentally conscious impact we see today. So what I think has happened looking back over the last number of years is that the environment or the culture has changed, just one of let's do something with this material because we can't keep filling up this hole because it's impacting us on a cost, impacting our pocket. Then what happened next, I think, was actually we can find some uses for this. So we can start to actually find some uses for this. Then social conscience caught up with this, coupled with the fact that we're now being educated at a greater level that there is a shortfall of virgin materials. There's an impact in getting virgin materials. So how do we marry those two together? And I think that's a very recent phenomenon. But the shift away in the last 10, 15 years to the zero waste, Mohammed, that you mentioned, has come through necessity. Innovation has certainly brought it forward, and we'll come to Nisrine after. But Dr. Udayan, is that the trend that you have seen?
See, in Abu Dhabi, we have been very successful in recycling CND and creating a market for CND recycled aggregate, the recycled concrete aggregate since 2010. How it evolved, the whole process, it's something, not one single thing can take the whole thing across. It's a couple of issues. There are challenges with the acceptance of the RCA. There are issues with the cost, as Mr. Mohammad mentioned about the competitiveness with the virgin material, the cost comparison with the virgin material comes out to be cheap. However, there is an environmental cost to the virgin material. The government has understood that there is an environmental cost of simply cutting down the mountains or mining of rocks to produce the virgin material. What we did in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, we worked on the legislation side of it. We created the market through the legislation. We did a strong awareness campaign across the construction sector, involving all stakeholders, whether the government sector or the planners or engineers, as well as the contractors. So it was to create a market. Now, what we did in 2010, there was a regulation rolled out for 40% of the recycled aggregate to substitute the use of virgin material wherever technically feasible. That was the main driver for utilization of the RCA. The second thing that we did was also a very commendable job done by Abu Dhabi Waste Management Center, along with the Abu Dhabi Quality and Conformity Council. See, you can produce recycled aggregate, and Ms. Nisrine will agree with me, unless the quality of the RCA meets a technical specification, there's no market for it. So we created a conformity scheme for the recycled concrete aggregate. And our recycling plants, we have a recycling plant in Abu Dhabi, and in the eastern part of the Emirate, that is Al Ain, we have 2 C&D recycling facilities. Both are certified by Abu Dhabi Quality and Conformity Council for the certification of the product. And that is how we could get in the buy-in from all the designers, planners, and the project management organizations or the project management consultants for use of the RCA in various projects, infrastructure projects. So that's how the whole thing has evolved over the last 10, 12 years in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and it's along the same timeline that we see around the world at different levels of maturity. And rightly, you brought Nisrine into that comment. Nisrine, you're involved in the early planning stages of a lot of major projects, and a lot of them are focusing around the handling of waste and in particular the C&D waste element. I'd be interested to know, is it and not maybe to jump too far into the timeline of the projects or the conversation or recycling timeline, but I'm interested to know, is that a cost-driven decision being made, or is it something different? Is it a social or an environmental consciousness? So what drives that initial conversation, those early planning discussions you're having?
Well, to be honest with you, usually we deal with, as consultants, we either deal with the authorities or we deal with the contractors. From an authority point of view, usually authorities, they have targets to meet as governmental authorities. So with the authorities, the discussion is different from that we have with contractors. As contractors, usually they seek to comply with their contractual requirements. So if in their contractual requirements, or they have an internal environmental policies. Some of the large-scale contractors, for instance, they have environmental policies. They have internal commitment to preserve towards the preservation of the environment. Okay, but at the end, as contractor, they seek to meet the requirements of the contract. So if their contract has something related to green procurement or enforces the use of products from green sources, they have to comply. And what drives the contractors as well is the economic value of the value of the product. For instance, if I have 2 products, okay, having the same technical specifications, and one is cheaper than the other, as a contractor, I would seek to buy the material that is cheaper. So it's very important that the materials that are recovered, the aggregates that are recovered from construction and demolition waste, be able to compete in terms of price with the materials that come from a virgin source. And it's also important, as Dr. Udayan says, that the material be of a similar quality, because we as consultants at the end, we need to approve that material, and we only approve the material that is in compliance with the technical specifications that are indicated in the contract. From an authority point of view, governments are becoming more aware, really. They are becoming more, and they are having a higher environmental awareness, higher commitment towards the environment. They are setting targets and environmental strategies. And of course, this is also driven by the scale of the operation we're talking about. Because when you talk about construction and demolition waste, actually, we shouldn't look only at the construction and demolition waste. We have to look at the construction industry as a whole. As you said, the construction industry is evolving at an alarming scale, given the urbanization pace that we're witnessing. There will always be needs for infrastructure projects. There will always be needs for housing, for schools, etc. So this industry, it will keep on growing. And this industry is exploiting the bulk of our natural resources. And as you know, our natural resources are limited. So at some point in time, we need to think of how to make this sustainable, okay? And at the same time, this industry is producing the biggest waste stream when compared to other waste streams. So that's why, this is the factor, in addition, of course, to the environmental aspect that the other speakers talked about. But the scale we're talking about is a major factor. And of course, the value of the material that is present within that waste stream. So all these factors are like the driving force for authorities to initiate construction and demolition waste management facilities.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting that the three speakers so far have talked about cost and quality, and I think that one of the things that can be driving that quality perception is the larger construction, or maybe even the larger demolition sector in the region, because regionally it is different throughout the world. And Ellen will see the advantage of that through selective demolition. Ellen gets a chance to go in to recover carpet tiles and carpets from buildings that are maybe going to be demolished. And without putting words in Ellen's mouth, it's a performance criteria that is attributed here. And Ellen, what I mean by that performance criteria is, I guess it has to be fit for that purpose that it has to go. It has to go on the floor. It has to separate the whole concrete floor from the feet or the socks that are walking around on that floor. And therefore it ticks that box. You know, when you're faced with that quality and cost issue, I guess it's never a conversation between brand new off the shelf, not a virgin, first time used carpet tiles, and this one. You know, that's not the conversation. I think would I be right in saying that the conversation is that fit for purpose?
There's multiple answers to that. For us, it's about understanding the provenance of the material, because we don't view it as a waste. We view it as a material that is, our default position is that it is fit for purpose, because we understand the provenance of where it comes from. So as long as the labeling around the product is fit for purpose, and I would, you know, our experience is that that is not always the case. As long as the labeling around the original product, then the product hasn't changed. Its composition is the same. So its content is the same as it was from new as such. All we're doing is extending the life cycle of a material that we understand the provenance of. In terms of fit for purpose, it depends. You know, we've created markets that we understand when we don't have the provenance of them. We are open about that, and we've created markets where as long as we understand the material composition of what we're working with, which we do, our system, our own internal grading system, call it as simply as that, defines the potential additional markets, the second life markets for that. So we're very honest about the material that we have, where it's come from, the composition of it, and if we don't have the original provenance of it, we are able to grade it, define it through our own system. And as long as we have been sticking to that system, which we have throughout, that seems to have worked so far.
Yeah, and I guess that's the answer I was looking for. Is it, and I maybe your definition of fit for purpose and my definition of fit for purpose are slightly different. But I guess what I was saying is that once you understand it can do a particular job, that you're not under any illusions that it can do something else, then that's what drives the decision-making process. And is there a direct link between what you're doing with the carpets or the tiles, and you know, where's the sustainable link? What is the link to what are we saving? What are we not doing as a result of what you're doing?
Well, we're not using virgin materials, are we? Basically, we're selling a product with, you know, apart from transport, pretty much zero embodied carbon required in it. So this material previously would either be burnt or buried. It's as simple as that. So we are putting an alternative out there in the market that isn't doing that. Simple as that.
Yeah, and this is this links perfectly into the conversation. Again, it was the three previous speakers had talked about cost and quality. My interpretation of construction demolition recycling, certainly the mineral aspect of construction demolition recycling, and it changes slightly from region to region. In the Middle East, we have non-selective demolition. In Europe and the UK, we have selective demolition. Parts of the US have selective, parts of non-selective, and this creates a higher contamination of plastic, wood, debris in the Middle East than it would do in the UK. The UK is more of a demolition, what's left after demolition, and then the soil excavation. But certainly my view on the mineral aspect of it is that it is fit for a purpose. And I think sometimes we get caught into the default position, and it could be around the wording or the marketing of the recycled material, that's not as good as this. And this happens to be a virgin material. It happens to be a basalt or a granite material. And this is a conglomerate of stone that's in a concrete mix that has come from a demolition process. And of course, it doesn't pass the same crush test, strength tests, but it is fit for a purpose. And Dr. Udayan, when you were legislating, or when you were involved in the legislation for the 40% recycled, or the RCA, to what strength level was that coming into play? Or was there a strength level, or was it a performance criteria? Was it a technical criteria? What drove that legislation?
We worked with the municipalities, primarily the municipalities and the Department of Transport, where the primary users who would use the RCA as the road-based material. We also did work with the consultants to look into what is the quality aspect that they would be comfortable with, and to what extent this can be accepted. And there we actually started with a couple of pilot projects. We started with pilot projects to see how much we can go and substitute the virgin material by utilizing the RCA. We also did look into simultaneously comparing all the quality parameters of the RCA with the virgin material. There were challenges. We overcome such challenges. There are challenges which Mr. Mohammed initially mentioned about the mix C&D. Yes, if you get the demolition waste perfectly segregated, like for example, if you actually get the gypsum segregated out before demolition, you can possibly recycle the gypsum separately. It won't contaminate the concrete. So you need the concrete before demolition. You need to segregate things like the ceramics, the asbestos, and others before you actually go in for demolition. So we did overcome the challenges by working on these things alongside of the consultants to get their buy-in and acceptance. We worked with the various government authorities, what will be acceptable, and then finally produce something that will be acceptable. We also got a major acceptance from Etihad Rail, the major national railway network builder. So Etihad Rail actually accepted after testing our material, they accepted it. So we worked on these primarily the quality parameters, and then how much is it? 25%, 30%, 40%. We even tried in some pilot projects up to 50%. No. So that was the actual driver to decide 40% is the thing which is acceptable, both from quality and cost perspective.
Yeah, and technology is advancing at a very, very rapid rate as well, and it's allowing the transformation of waste into the product. And as Ellen mentioned earlier on, in fact, she doesn't even see it as a waste. It's a resource. It starts life as a resource, a raw feed, a raw material. I've been very lucky to be involved in some hugely successful projects just through the introduction of innovative technology. The Sheehan Group in Oxford in the UK are achieving 100% reuse of their sand and aggregate into building blocks, construction blocks for the UK building market at a rate of 20,000 building blocks per day. We have our good friends AF Group in Norway, who again have achieved EN 12620 certification, as have DA Matsons in Sweden and numerous other operators around the UK. You mentioned the rail network, repurpose it in Australia. Melbourne have through 3 years of testing been able to get a certified product into the rail network. Now, the reason I mention all these, and I know Nisrine is quite passionate about this as well, is that these are people who are individually going after this, achieving this on their own. And Nisrine, in terms of the challenges in advancing the circular economy, we know the innovation exists. What, I suppose particularly what I'm angling towards is the legislation, this next driver. What brings the concept from being a concept, from being something that we're all passionate about, to something that's actually almost driving autonomously?
I think the main issue we're facing at the moment is that we're still operating under a recycling economy. And when we talk about a recycling economy, it's completely different than talking about a circular economy, a sustainable and circular economy. Under a recycling economy, the key performance indicator is how much you recover as material and how much you reuse and recycle of these materials, irrespective of the type of the use of that material. For instance, at the moment in some European countries like the Netherlands, like Iceland, they are diverting approximately almost 100% of their construction and demolition waste from landfills. However, if you want to assess the situation from the context of a circular economy, which usually which focuses more on keeping the material as long as possible in the economy and keeping the material, the quality of the material as high as possible. So in that context, it's not the only parameter. The quantitative amount of recycled material that you're recovering is not the only parameter that defines whether you are operating under a circular and sustainable economic model. For instance, Iceland, they are using the bulk of their material as fill aggregates. And if we consider the principles of circular economy, that wouldn't be respecting those principles. And I think the problem that we're facing at the moment is we talk about circular economy a lot. Theoretically, we talk a lot. However, what's being implemented is more of a model that responds to a recycling economic model rather than circular economic model. If you want to talk about circular economic model, you have to address the whole life cycle of the project, starting from the design, going through the procurement, ensuring that you have a clean procurement strategy, then going to the construction, implementing segregation on the construction sites, making sure that the waste goes to the facilities in a segregated manner, isolating the hazardous fraction, etc., defining the standards, having the legal framework that bans and enforces the bans on landfilling, construction, and demolition waste. It's a whole system. It has to be looked at as a holistic system rather than focusing on the end-of-pipe solution and focusing on the technology. Because technology, and you're in a better position to talk about that, it has really advanced, and now technology has reached a state where you can recover really pure aggregates from the construction and demolition waste. So it's not only a matter of technology, it's a matter of enforcing the use of these material in the market, helping them compete with other materials by detaxation system, for instance. I don't know, there are many policy instruments that could help market these materials. And of course, we need to focus more on minimizing the waste rather than producing the waste and then dealing with it.
Yeah, correct. And it's quite interesting you brought up the European examples, was it they had a drive for 70% diversion from landfill. But in order to achieve those figures, you're quite rightly pointed out that they used the classification of backfill to achieve that. And it's something that grates on me greatly, that when I hear the barriers, even throughout Europe, about the use of reuse of this material in one hand, yet I move on to the next location or next part of that region, and I see someone, an entrepreneur who has achieved a really, really high quality product, and someone had asked a question on the question forum here about the end uses. Concrete, high quality concrete sand. One customer in particular, and one operator in particular in Sweden, is producing a golf sand, a drainage golf sand out of recycled material or excavated materials. Asphalt aggregates, road-based aggregates, building blocks, as we said earlier. You know, the uses are endless, and once you have the technology in place, you can set them side by side to virgin aggregates and let people make the choice. But they have to be educated to make that. And Mohammed, in terms of BIA in the region, you know, what steps are you taking as a business to educate the consumer? And I guess, I suppose, I asked that from a theoretical education, but also from an innovation point of view. You know, what have you done to ensure that the customer has trust or faith in the product they're getting?
First of all, let me come back to a point of the circular economy. And now in UAE, we have a system, its existing system is called LEED program or LEED certification. In LEED certification is become as a choice for a contractor or the consultant to follow up. Now to reach, as Mr. C mentioned, to clean aggregates, to reach to all aggregates can be used with less cost, reduce the cost of recycling or processing. We need to have the system as a mandatory, not a choice for a contractor, because based on the LEED program, even the LEED program, they put it as a grade, golden grade, silver grade, platinum grade, to refer to diversion rate for each company. So if the company or the, let us talk, government put this system, LEED system, as a mandatory system, the contractor will be forced to make the self-segregation from the site. I'm working with one project, example, as Zahia in Sharjah. They was following the LEED program. We receive very clean aggregate and is straightforward to process without any extra cost, and the end product was certified. By the way, also I'm working with the ADQCC in Abu Dhabi, and our material also certified by ADQCC from Abu Dhabi MBA. So we follow the same standard. We work side to side to come with the business or to grow this business. Coming to point of awareness. Now we're working first of all with our private sectors. We are working with the government sectors. We have also our school in BIA. They start to learn the people or the new generation what the concept of segregation, what the concept of the self-segregation, what means environment, what means waste management. We have this all. We work also side to side and collaborate with some clients in advise and educate them how importance of the recycling. And to be honest, we see from some contractor or some people some shift in attitude on that. In other example, to give you existing example in BIA. Now we have all of you maybe know we have our new headquarters, BIA headquarters. Now we work also with Zaha Hadid to ensure the building, everything in the building meet the LEED program or meet LEED rating, as well reuse all construction material. In case tomorrow we need to, there is any construction waste, it's available after the all construction done, we can reuse it. We do. Why? Because we use the LEED program, LEED certification. We can send it to any facility in terms of not only concrete. We talk about many other items, cardboard, steel, aluminium. We send it to each facility, or at least to end user to reuse it again. Second thing, coming to point for the mixing and the, as Mr. our Dr. Udayan mentioned, the problem usually not coming from demolition waste. Demolition is straightforward. People will demolish the material, they remove the all recyclable as steel, as aluminum, and they use it on their way. So the C&D or the C&D coming from demolition is straightforward, sometimes clean, or maximum sometimes coming with a 5% contamination level. It's something acceptable, and we come on with this cost. Our problem coming usually from the construction waste, not from demolition, the procedure. So we need to focus on that. So the LEAD program, I believe they can solve this problem, reduce the cost, make the recycled aggregate can be used.
Yeah. And I guess by doing what you have done in your headquarters, I guess it sets the example for everyone else in the region, that you do as I do, just not as I say. So you have led on that. Folks, we're getting very close to the end of the session, which I was never in any doubt that we would get to this point and have plenty of conversation. So what I will do is I will ask you all for a one-liner. I know you can all speak for much longer, but it's a one-liner of what your hope is for the future. We'll stay with Mr. Mohammed. You're on my screen, so we'll stay with you. Just a one line. What is the hope for the C&D waste in the future?
To be honest with you, first of all, I like to be able to take that more serious. Some contractor company or construction, they didn't take in their consideration the impact of the mixed waste, the impact of the dumping of this all material in the landfill. When most of them looking for today, they're not looking example for 10 years more after. The need of land is become also critical, is not available all the time. What I hope, to be honest with you, to have a government supervision is critical to ensure and to enforce the relevant regulation. Example, as Dr. Udayan mentioned, the all legislation and regulation they did. I believe the government should be enforce all people to use it and to follow it, to have a clear supervision and a clear idea and awareness to all contractors, because the matter has become more and more year to year.
Yeah.
And this
okay.
is impact. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I let you go on for more than your one line, so I'm gonna have to cut everybody else short. Ellen, you've a pipe dream.
Well, from my point as well, I concur really with Mr. Nisrine. I think we have to move away from a sort of a culture of recycling, and you know, we know that we're dealing with finite resources. We can't keep mining. And I think it's about a mixture of EPR, a mixture of source separation, a mixture of dematerialization thinking, to ensure that whatever material we're dealing with, whether it be C&D waste or anything else, that we are extending the life of that material to the nth degree, in whatever means we do not need to mine continuously virgin material. We need to use what we've got better.
Excellent, well said. Nisrine?
Well, honestly, I think Ellen said it all. I can't but concur with her. What I look forward is to see the extended producer responsibility applicable and involving every single stakeholder who's involved in the whole life cycle and the whole supply chain of material involved in that. Same level of commitment, same level of responsibility. And it's really only by then we can achieve something.
Yeah.
We can't keep continuously mining. I think that will be one of the taglines from today, Ellen. Dr. Udayan, 30 seconds to you.
Thank you. Well, every speaker has highlighted what is required in the future. UAE has rolled out a circular economy policy, and as part of the policy, detailed regulatory framework is to be developed to promote this sector with green procurement, with green incentives, because There will be a cost struggle always against the virgin material. And I mentioned the virgin material looks cheaper, but there is an environmental cost to it. So a lot has to be done to promote this sector and achieve. We have also done through the Estidama, which is the Arabic meaning of sustainability. We have the Pearl rating system in Abu Dhabi, which is mandatory to comply for all projects, all construction and demolition projects. So a lot has to be done in this regard.
Yeah, I think that's also a good sentiment, that be aware of the long-term cost, just not the now. Folks, that brings us to the end of a really, really exciting panel discussion. I must apologize to the numerous questions that are flooding in on my right-hand side. We have touched on some of them, just maybe not directly answered the question, but we have certainly touched on some of them. Anything else, then we maybe pick it up, and the relevant person or the best person will be able to come back to you with the answer to that if we haven't already touched on it. Thank you all for your participation today. And thank you to International Recycling Week for inviting us all on to give our perspective on the construction and demolition waste situation. It's a pity we just didn't have longer to discuss it, because I feel this panel could talk for forever on it. Soliha and Fatima in the background, thank you very much for keeping us all right. And we wish you continued success for the last day of the conference. So thank you, everyone, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to the organizers to give us this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.